We've always asked you which phones you'd like to see in our comparisons, and you've always answered. We got our hands on it and prepared for the ultimate showdown of Google with their premium Pixel 6 Pro flagship, Apple and their better than ever iPhone 13 Pro Max, and Samsung's newest gem, the Galaxy S22 Ultra. Are there big differences between this camera and the S21s? Exynos versus Snapdragon? We're upholding our point system with 3 points to the winner, 2 for the runner-up, and 1 for third place. You're about to see all the footage with your bare eyes, so buckle up and let's let the facts speak. Without waiting, I'm gonna let you immediately know that the S22 Ultra has an amazing understanding of dynamic range. It had the most successful algorithm when it came down to giving us good visuals of the sky, and I was very pleased to see the live and punchy colors that Samsung provided us with. There's always gotta be a downside though, right? So in this scenario, I've noticed that the Galaxy S22 Ultra loses a lot of detail and fails to comprehend what things are supposed to look like under the shadows. Sure, they might be able to fix this with a software update later on, but to me, it's what can make or break a photo, as this, along with the imagery being too dark, isn't what I'm really looking for. And there's also another point that I feel I need to make. While I don't believe it's as bothersome as the lack of detail in darker colors, there's just no need for this oversaturation by the Galaxy. I've mentioned how the Pixel always seems to be very consistent, even when you're just pointing and clicking without putting too much thought into it, and we're seeing plenty of that in these photos. For the most part, it puts on a great show with regard to color reconstruction and has a slightly better understanding of the dynamic range algorithm than the iPhone in quite a few shots. Speaking of the iPhone, it puts up a solid performance as usual. The part that pains me though is that the iPhone is the one that struggles the most with dynamic range when the sky isn't the main focal point. It kinda looks like a white blanket was just pulled over the top of the photo, and that's just not good enough for Apple. That's not to say I don't like the photos in general though, as the colors of the subject are spot on most of the time, and the photos are reliable as ever. There is a reason for me being more critical as the videos progress, because as the level of competition increases, so do our expectations. Before I get down to the points, I will mention that Samsung's flagship is a brand new phone, and we will most likely see different results in the future thanks to software updates. To not miss our upcoming videos of the Xiaomi Mi 12 Pro, OnePlus 10 Pro, and further testing of the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, hit that subscribe button and like this video. It was extremely close at one point, but with the weather being sunnier and giving us more options to play around with, the Pixel 6 Pro is one step ahead of the iPhone 13 Pro Max, with the breaking point being dynamic range. Even though the Galaxy S22 Ultra rose to the top when it came down to that same breaking point, it is a bit lacking in the other areas that I mentioned and will take a seat in third place. But would you look at that? It's already back on its feet because the time has come to speak about the revolution of Android phones with Samsung leading the charge. For years, Android smartphone brands tussle around trying to figure out a way to match the quality of what an iPhone can do, and it seems like Samsung has finally done it. The new and improved edge detection technology is just immaculate, and the quality is finally iPhone level. That being said, there's no doubt in my mind that you will have differing opinions on which one is better, because the photos are exactly just that, different. The colors present in the iPhone are as natural as they can get, with the Galaxy having that contrasty and punchy look. But does it bother me like it did with the regular photos? Not at all. I'm impressed with Samsung's portrait feature and will be giving them the honor of tying with Apple for first place. It's kind of funny because I used to say that Google's portrait mode was decent, but it just needed to be improved. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, as the competition gets better, so do our expectations, and the Pixel is just not delivering. What could be seen as average is starting to look pretty bad, and Google really needs to take a look at this. You have the choice to tone down the bokeh a bit after you take the photo, but that just solves half the problem. The main errors that I've experienced are the background not being accurately blurred, an overabundance of red tint, and losing parts of my hair or ears because the edge detection isn't on par with the other two devices. Until Google does something about this, third place is unfortunately all it's going to be getting for the portrait category. But just like the Galaxy, the Pixel will also be getting back up in the next category, which is going to be zoom. You're probably wondering how that's gonna happen with the S22 Ultra having a 3x as well as a 10x optical zoom, and historically being known as one of the best devices to zoom with. Honestly, I don't know how Google manages to pull it off either. The way they explain it is in the form of super res zoom. The thing is, we've heard plenty of gimmicky features with fancy names, and they often don't work as advertised. It just happens though that this time, Google has nailed it. The first few levels of zoom don't show you many differences even when the optical zooms kick in, but when 5x comes around, you start to wonder how the pixel's consistency isn't budging. That wonder quickly turns into awe as the Pixel gives us an amazing 10x, which is actually directly comparable to the 10x of the Galaxy's telephoto lens. Meanwhile, Apple software has given up trying to optimize the image and turn me into a Picasso painting, but that's okay. The Pixel continues to give us amazing results at 15 and 20x, and it is only when you get to 100x that you see a big difference between Samsung and Google. While I can say that the Galaxy took marvelous shots without the need of getting up close and personal, the Pixel has definitely outperformed its expectations with a near-perfect algorithm in place to enhance its digital zoom. The same goes for the photos of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. You could even say that the 10x of the Pixel looks better here. With more attention to darker areas, it does need to be said that the details in general of the Galaxy is more appealing, especially at 15x and beyond. Even with two optical lenses, the Galaxy will only be one step ahead of the Pixel to sit in first place, while the iPhone will take third, with its mediocre zooming capabilities. When you spell zoom backwards though, what do you get? That's right, macro. Something that the Pixel doesn't have. This is another good example of the standards rising, because the 4x optical zoom of the Pixel was, in my opinion, very good at the beginning. Later, I started to say that it was decent. And now, even though it does take impressive macro shots for a phone that doesn't even have a macro mode, the Galaxy just has more detail and less noise. The iPhone, though, is kind of carrying on its tradition of being the device that can get the closest. Mind you, this is quite new for Apple. They've only introduced this mode for their 13 Pro versions, but you just have to love people, or in this case phones, do something the best on their first try. Apple, Samsung, and Google will be the order for macro as we move on to something that's got me quite excited with the addition of the Galaxy S22 Ultra into the mix. Samsung has definitely improved the experience of the user with the S22 Ultra, as shooting a video is easier than ever with their upgraded optical image stabilization. They've also carried over the performance of the dynamic range algorithm in the photo category. But even then, it's still not good as the iPhone. The specialized software of Apple does a great job of portraying the colors exactly how they look in real life, and also manages to protect detail in dark areas, whereas the Pixel tries to ensure this with an overabundance of brightness and saturation. On the side of the Galaxy, things aren't too bright either. The tone of the colors is heavy, and you're losing a lot of detail in those very same darker areas. Apple's software remains at the top for videography, and it's something that they should definitely be proud of. Google and Samsung go hand in hand as both have slight issues independent from one another, which brings us to the second part of video, commonly known as stabilization. If you kept in touch with our recent videos, you'll most likely be aware that Google's software has been incredibly successful in this area. Apple, on the other hand, opts to use their embedded stabilization, which is not nearly on the same level of Google. Samsung has made the optical image stabilization 58% wider on the S22 Ultra so it can handle even more dynamic conditions. Combining this with video digital image stabilization results in a 48% reduced shaking compared to the S21 Ultra. These are huge numbers, and it's very impressive that Samsung went to this length. Unfortunately for them, Google's software just does it one better. Now, this certainly isn't the most sought after feature in smartphones, but it's still quite useful for many that don't want to spend extra money on a video camera with excellent stabilization. The S22 Ultra comes in second and is slightly better than the 13 Pro Max. What it's not better at though is autofocus. Samsung has shown some class in the video category, as it was clear that they've also improved the focusing capabilities. But how do you improve something that's perfect? This question is sponsored by Apple and their autofocus technology. The fact that it doesn't need the object to be perfectly aligned in the frame and has a very smooth transition when the focus function is triggered puts it over Google and Samsung, even though the Galaxy does deserve an honorary mention since, aside from very rapid movements, it gave a pretty good effort, and if I must say, the best effort when we took some slow motion videos. Nothing has changed with the Pixel in the iPhone shooting at 120 or 240 FPS at 1080p. But as you saw with the Huawei P50 Pro, it's always nice to have a phone that can go higher. 960 FPS at 720p is good enough to take first place here. While I am not as exciting as a cat jumping on top of the cupboard like in our last video, I'm still good enough to show you how good the quality is. Audio is coming up next. Time for a flashback. What is up, guys? We're back with a brand new comparison, and now we're going to be trying out the audio kits. This is going to be a comparison between the Google Pixel 6 Pro, the brand new and upgraded Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. We're in a park right now. There's not much sound going on, but still, you gotta account for the wind and the noise canceling. Let me know what you guys think. The audio quality was quite disappointing from Samsung, as the mic sounds a bit muffled. I don't think it should be this hard to implement a good and clear mic like Google has done into their flagship. And even though I find the clarity of the Pixel is almost always better than the iPhone, I really don't see the Galaxy fitting in between them, so they'll be taking last place. Which brings us to the deciding factor, night mode. We tried to shoot this footage when it was as dark as possible, but I think it's more accurate to call this low light conditions. While there is little to no difference between the phones when it comes to photos, the videos speak different volumes. Photos are mostly about which software prefers sharpness and which prefers softer imaging. Videos, on the other hand, are known to be plagued with noise and grain at night. So it's a matter of which phone is able to deal with this while retaining the best quality. Unsurprisingly, the iPhone software gives it that extra push while recording with the wide camera, but it looks like the Galaxy has got a few tricks up its sleeve while shooting footage in ultra-wide, managing to stay ahead of the degrading quality of the iPhone. While the Pixel is definitely good enough for most, it's not good enough to overtake the other two when shooting video in these conditions. Once again, we've reached the end of a hard-fought battle, and it feels like the gap is getting smaller and smaller between the top devices. It feels like a crime to say the Google Pixel 6 Pro is in third place with 21 points, while the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra is in second place with 22 points. The Apple iPhone 13 Pro Max is the winner with 23 points. I'm actually pleased that this was such a close contest, and do note that some categories are more important than others, which can change the results based on your perspective. Also, for those that like to play around with features, the Pixel and the Galaxy have far more than the iPhone, which could be a good selling point for some. Thanks for watching until the end, my friends, and I'd appreciate it if you drop a like and subscribe to keep that support going. See you in the next video.